those three together, that's your assessment. That's how we do it, but I go down into the detail by the different uses.
You guys are very similar in the road aspect as Stony Brook. Same issue. Public roads, 004 account, they've got the exact same issue as you all do. But they treat everybody one-to-one, whether it's multifamily or a single family. A little bit different.
And, yeah, but again, you have to be careful that your assessments aren't truly all the same.
That's correct.
Because that by law, that would be a tax and not an assessment. So, anyway, next one, that's my ERU example, same concept. It's all multiplied out. You take the budget, multiply it by the percentage of ERUs, and then divide it back in by the number of units, and there you'll have your assessment by unit. Next one. Again, we have to remember, it's that two-pronged test. What is the special and peculiar benefit, and is it fairly and reasonably apportioned? Those will be the two things that I always keep in the back of my mind when I'm running these numbers and running the different ways of assessing them, so. And okay, any questions or comments? Very simple. It's much like your ponds thing. I thought that was great, by the way. You might want to think about putting your assessments on there too as a layer.
Do we have copies of that presentation?
Charge this one.
I have them
He'll
in
make
digital
copies.
or hard copy.
Could be happy to send it to you.
Electronic copy.
Electronic copy's fine.
Oh, you got one? I just gave you electronic.
Yeah, I guess.
Phil, there is a question that I've got a map for Russ that helped him on facilitate all this. Taken all of Gateway and divided it into, for example, the big ones, the roads. We have roads that now belong to the county, but we still have landscaping, street signs, street lights, and monuments on, which we have that component. Then we have now roads that are being transferred over from WCI to us for the ones we've accepted. Then we have roads that are in POAs, property owner associations, that have dissolved, that are in the cloud. Nobody knows what to do with those. And then we have the private roads in all the communities. Those are off the table. Our problem is you guys in Stony Brook are really like that, only since they're public roads, you're involved in this. The problem I've got is I have the map of all of Pelican. Where do your public roads end and private HOA and or private roads begin? Bob and I had a little bit of discussion. When I come up through, let's just start with everything in Pelican is a public road, except I took out all the condos. Those are their own roads. That would be inclusive of the new one being built, the one to the right as you come in,
Right.
and then
Sienna-
back in the back on the
Sienna
south
and
end.
Ravenna, there's one to the last.
Sienna, Ravenna, and Plaza.
Okay, so those are all private roads. When I come in and I turn right to go to the town center, how far back do I go before that goes from public to private?
To owned by, I can't tell you.
It
Town
stops
center.
at Vincenzo.
Huh?
Yeah.
It
Public
started
to
at
Vincenzo.
Vicenza,
Right.
it
So-
goes public to
Pelican Reserve Boulevard to Vincenzo. It's
Vicenza,
public.
which is where
Bingo.
that
Okay.
intersection is.
So I can now.
And from
copy
there
that
on.
map up.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other combinations?
And then at the left, when you
We've
turn
got
up
the-
on Cypress Grove, those are all private, aren't they?
What?
The Cypress Grove Road?
No,
No, everything over there is
They all being
public.
turned over to CDD.
they all will eventually be, you know, from his perspective, they're all gonna be CDD.
So
roads.
Prado,
Eventually.
Pistoia, all those are gonna be public roads.
How about Veneto?
Those will be, what?
How about
Veneto will also be, oh, yeah, Veneto, up, yeah, eventually, if we buy the town center. But it's not, right now, it's
Right now it's not.
Veneto only to Vicenza.
If we
Yeah,
buy the
to
town
Vincenzo.
centers, that doesn't make it CDD.
It's not CDD.
No, that's
It'll
right.
still be private.
So
Well,
that'll still be
yeah,
technically private,
Will be the
like
Which is-
Palazzo is.
Who's building those
Master
roads?
Association.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Who will be building those roads?
Do they?
The roads are built.
They're already
Yeah.
built? Were they bonded is my question then? Did they
Yes.
use bonds to build? Okay. Then they are bonded, they're CDD or public roads at that point.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of
That's
times
the only, and Bob and I talking, we're not aware that you have any other landscaping that's not associated with the road. In other words, if we lump all the landscaping in with roads, well, it's your guys' budget, you guys basically do it right now.
Yeah.
That's the difference between what you do and what we do. We have to rearrange our budget to accommodate this,
Right.
because we have landscaping separately identified. We will now take the landscaping and split it into three components: the soccer field, Parks and Rec, and roads.
And Castle can easily differentiate between what is the HOA versus the individual neighborhoods, because that's how we pay for it now.
So we're pretty common then on that. Street lights just is a function of whether you own the light and you energize it and pay for the power, or if FPL owns it all, and if FPL owns it all, then the only thing you have to put in is the budget of what you pay them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Generally, that mix is, the stuff that's on the, within the neighborhoods is generally FPL stuff, I believe. And
Yes.
And if it's not in the neighborhoods, then it belongs to us.
And all that stuff will show up in the budget, so those are easy. Okay,
Yeah.
well, the roads was the big one we had a question on.
Well, and another factor to consider is that from Colonial to the firehouse, that
Oh,
landscaping
thank you.
is shared.
That was
shared
just
with the-
transferred.
That's shared with the commercial, and was it 87% with the residents and 13%?
But right now, the cost of operating and maintaining tree line from Colonial all the way to the fire station is now going to be a part of Pelican Preserve. Total right of way is going to be under your operation and maintenance.
It has
No.
been.
It has been.
Shared.
You don't share it with
It's
anybody,
shared-
you pay it all.
Share it with the commercial there, the shopping center.
Tree line is a county road, but the landscaping we share with the commercial, 87-13.
Okay, because at the last meeting, that issue came up, Tony was talking about that road is coming to Pelican Preserve for operation and
Just the
maintenance.
land?
No,
Just the landscape.
Just landscaping, not the road.
Tony was talking about the right of way from Colonial down to someplace.
Yeah,
past
fire
the
station.
Yeah,
But I thought he was talking about road, he's only talking landscaping only.
Yeah, he talked right of way was what he was mentioning, was the term he used. was
Let's put it
right
this
of
way, there's a chuck hole out in the middle of the road, who pays to fix it?
It's not us.
The road is
No,
county
it's
road.
not.
City or the county?
County.
County, right,
County road.
Jason?
Okay.
We don't pay for
Well,
any
it's
of
not
that.
us. Let's put it this way, it's not Pelican
Pelican,
Preserve.
Yeah.
Not Pelican Preserve,
Whether it's the
okay.
county or the city, it's a different
Okay.
question.
but we ended up, Ed, with that issue that was apparently settled, I thought, at the last board meeting. And that had to do with the lighting,
Right, the way
the
lighting.
lighting out there, where they had to be, we had to
Okay,
give
we'll have
them a
to
right
check
of
that
way or
one.
a license before WCI or Lennar was gonna pick up the lighting for that, so it's.
Well,
little confusing.
it's a budgetary item as to whether it's in or out of the budget to do this calculation.
Well,
That's all it is.
and my question to you then is that landscaping itself, is that a part of the CDD or not? Because if it's not,
Well, the answer is.
The answer is
It is.
yes.
It is,
And
okay.
it's divided 13% to commercial
in
and
87,
and 87 to,
and the commercial's not in the CDD, correct?
No,
Okay. So it'd be an 87% amount of that would go
I
into
don't
that
know
budget.
That-
I know that that's the case.
that commercial up there at the intersection is not in Pelican Preserve.
no,
No.
but it's in the CDD.
Well, that's the question, because a lot of times the CDD boundary is outside of the, that's, you know.
You know,
Yeah, if you look at what we budget for, we've budgeted for things for the commercial area as well as for Pelican, so.
So when you come in off of Colonial
Right.
on tree line, that entire commercial property there to the left
It's in the district.
is in the CDD.
And both the left and the right,
Both left there.
Both sides.
both sides.
From Colonial, from Country Club, what's the name?
Colonial.
Country Club. All the way to the exit of the, what used to be Goodwill Shopping Center.
Right. See that, all that?
There are two parcels divided by
That's the
tree line.
CDD.
Yep.
Firehouse to Colonial.
gotcha. Okay.
Because we
More
own
than we
the
thought.
first pond in Colonial Country Club, that's ours. That's the CDD's pond.
On the right.
On the right, all
Correct.
the way over, yes.
We talked about that before, yeah, okay, gotcha.
Any other questions of Russ? Russ, thank you very much.
You didn't
Ed,
mean to
thank
confuse you, but-
Appreciate
It's gonna be
it.
fun for that public
Taking your-
meeting.
Taking your time out.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll keep you all informed as we step through the process.
I hope so,
It'll
I hope
be-
so.
Oh, don't worry, yeah. I've been through many of these, so.
We look forward to
Potential
our
to be
assessment
emotional.
going down.
I'm sorry.
Has potential to be emotional.
Oh, nothing's gonna be any more emotional than the other night on that apartment.
It'll all be the same amount of money, it just depends on which one it works. So, okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to moving right along. Financial update, since Nancy is not here, we're not gonna have a financial update. We didn't get any data, I'm not sure if that's preliminary budget review. You all got copies that Nancy sent from the budget, and I think for today, what we need to do is to just, discuss any basic questions we might have. Nancy's not here, Jason may be able to help us out on some things. John, go ahead. Yep.
Bottom of the first page, it has capital asset study. That should be, for 2018, should be zero. Next year, should be zero.
Should be zero.
For this year, it becomes 10,000, that's the bill.
Yes.
And for next year, it'll be zero.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's, then Nancy has to know that.
Right.
Yeah. There, the thing I like to start with, she sent in her email kind of the basic methodology that she used, which seemed appropriate to me, and I guess that was not printed here, unfortunately.
Is it in the package?
Maybe.
I have a copy.
You have a copy of the email, Joe?
Yeah.
In looking at it, the email, it seemed appropriate, the methodology. She said 5 months projected out with a 3% increase for some expenses. Contract, those items on which we have a contract, she's using the contract amount, and she used last year's figures. So, it seems to me the basic methodology is one we've used before, probably appropriate. One of the questions I have, and Jason, maybe you can address this, but I noticed a lot of the irrigation stuff seems to be running a lot higher than we had budgeted. Specifically irrigation repairs and maintenance. We budgeted $9,700. Now she's saying it's gonna almost double. And some of that is the, she doesn't mention Cypress Grove in that. Do you have any idea why the irrigation, and then also irrigation electric, same thing, going up quite massively. From 16,000 base budget in 2017 to up to, I'm sorry, fiscal year total budget for 18, up to 25,000. Quite a bit.
Well, that one says it's also increased 40%.
Hmm?
That
You want-
that line
Jason, you
says
wanna
it's
come up to
assumed
the-
40, yeah.
I am on 706,514.
Yeah, she's assuming 40% for Cypress Grove.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
So she's yeah, okay. I read the wrong line. But it's based on actuals through May, plus 40% for Cypress Grove. Correct. But the irrigation repairs and maintenance, she says actuals through May, and those actuals through May are more than doubling the budget, which is a little. Are the irrigation repairs and maintenance is way up for this year, above the budget?
No, they're not. I'm gonna have to get with Nancy on that and see
Mhm.
and look into what exactly where she's getting that
Okay,
number.
well, that's one of the questions, certainly.
Mhm.
Would that also be Cypress Road?
would assume it would be Cypress Grove, but we,
We didn't do anything for them.
yeah, right. But we also, we put things in the budget for Cypress Grove, right, in this year's budget.
Right, correct, you do, for,
But
Landscaping.
when we were doing it, you flash back to last year at this time,
Yeah.
we only really had track L and half a arena.
Well,
But
we
that
used-
has exploded since then. With the Matarita, Casella.
Yeah, I don't know how much we
Right
had,
now.
I do not know how much we had. Let's see.
Yeah, if you didn't have a calendar of the conveyances, it'd be tough to reconstruct in your head.
Yeah.
But it has grown explosively.
But I don't know, yeah, but I don't know exactly what we put in last
our
year's budget.
portion of that would be Cypress Grove itself,
Yes,
not the actual communities. Right, our portion of that would be Cypress Grove.
But the landscape
And the
went
monuments.
beyond that. I mean, now we have all the way out to Prado, that wasn't there before.
wasn't there before. The question,
But I'm saying, the budget had Cypress Grove in it.
Hey, no, yeah, but
Yes.
we're
I
asking,
don't
why
know,
is
I
it
don't-
greater than what we thought?
Yes.
And I think it's greater than what we thought because it has continued to, the obligation has expanded.
well, I think that's, you know,
But if she's not here, we got.
we don't have Nancy here.
We're
It's gonna be,
guessing.
it's gonna be hard to answer some of those questions. So I think those are the kind of discussions we've gotta get into next time. The way she's projected it out, it looks like, you know, the increase, for total O and M and reserves cost is about $40,000, which is, you know, $41,000, which is not quite 3%.
Okay, now,
But what this doesn't have in it,
I was just gonna
and
talk
that's
about
right,
it.
and that was my next question.
Yeah, in the waterway
What-
management
what are you-
areas.
What are you looking at? What are you looking at?
We have two major components.
Yeah.
The first is, we will be responsible next fiscal year, probably this fiscal year, for conservation of wetlands.
Right.
And that's gonna be a net of about at least $80,000 per yearly. And then we have, we are transitioning with the conveyances mature. Right now, we have Track L, we have Prado, and we have Casella 1. We will be getting Matarita 2A and both of the Carinas and the other one. So I don't know what that's going to be. It's going to be more money, but but those are the only two things. And then after that, it should be stable. We won't have any more problems. We will have everything we're gonna get. So for the first time going forward, whatever number we put in the ground for 19 should be it. We won't have any more future costs.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult for us, because the bottom line of this thing, what we're seeing here is missing two major pieces. It's missing ponds, which of course is a very major piece, and then it's missing all the allocations from the CDD, from the, you know,
The
from
new structure.
CDD, huh?
Yeah, the new structure of our CDD.
Right, exactly. So we're gonna have to have that information, as we go forward. And I assume that Stephen can provide at least the start of what that's gonna look like, because it gives us an idea of what we're gonna be dealing with as far as.
The current year ponds budget is round number 600,000. Next year, at a minimum, it's 690 without the additional ponds. That's just for the conservation of
But
wetlands.
this year's pond's budget is 489.
I don't think so.
Oh, I think so.
I think it's 600,000. I think the old one was 489.
Chris, what's Stephen's
You're saying 19.
contract this year?
Huh?
We're gonna be rolling out.
I'm talking this year, 17, 18. Oh, there is.
When
Yeah, I must have been.
Probably early, you know, the
I'm
preliminary
confused by
budget
these
sheets,
numbers,
we
because
start giving him
she has
some
2017 and 2018, but I think we're talking 2018.
Okay, the current year ponds budget is $589,400. That's for the year we're in, 17, 18.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
589, because it went up about 89,000. Next year, it will go up,
Okay, thank you.
At least 90,000.
well, 90 is just it's conservation of wetlands, we know that, there's no choice there. And then whatever the additional ponds are going to be. So there will be a hit. Yeah, I knew we were just south of 600,000.
Will you be able to give for our next meeting?
Absolutely.
You'll be able to give Nancy your numbers?
I'll bring it up in my report here, but we have a meeting tomorrow morning with ponds and with woods and wetlands. finalize what they're gonna be charging us.
Okay.
And that may be on the high side. The 90,000 is an accurate number, but we're not gonna have all that.
Mhm.
There are some things that are gonna be CED responsibility. For instance, Area 9 on the other side of I-75. That won't be part of us, but it is part of that 90,000. Maybe it'll be a little better than I thought.
All right, any more questions on the budget? We obviously got lots of work to do. Okay, Jason, you're up next, and you have a number of items for us, I think. I would like to bring one item up that Jason and I have talked about. I have been contacted by somebody in Colonial who would like to look at the traffic sign that we have. You know, the flashing sign that can also collect stuff that we sometimes put on the roadway. They wanna see that sign, they wanna see what it looks like for Colonial, and that's fine. But they also would like to borrow it for a few days, and I just wanna be sure that it's the consensus of the committee that they don't mind to have Colonial borrow our sign.
A lot of people have helped us.
A few
Not very well.
days, so I
A few
think.
days is a week,
Yeah.
few days.
It is a week, I would
As
think.
opposed to a month.
I would
They're
think,
just
yeah.
throwing it
Yeah.
out there.
So, unless there are objections, I will assume it's the consensus of the committee that it's okay to lend that sign out.
Good.
Okay, thanks. Jason, you have a
Are
number of.
you gonna have to train them, I guess, on
Yes,
this
yeah,
use?
well, yes, and as a matter of fact,
You know,
I mean,
this
part
is
of
loading.
what we have is, Jason and I are setting up a session to have them come over so that we can show them what the sign
And the
does.
software they can get into
You're
and all
right,
that kind of
right,
stuff.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. All the different features.
Yeah, Jill Busman is.
Jill's gonna do it.
Jill's gonna do that, and we're just trying to come up with a time to do it. Jason, you have a number of items.
A couple.
Yeah.
The first one being the two pedestal repairs that we went ahead with on Cypress Grove to get the irrigation working out there again. That I know we wanted to bring, I brought this to Phil and
Yeah,
we went ahead with the repairs.
I
We wanted to give him aware of it.
approved them going forward with the repairs, they had to be done. But I'd like to retroactively get the committee's approval of that expenditure.
Make a motion.
Yeah, what was the amount, Jason?
There was two proposals, one for $835.20 and one for $1095.70.
Okay.
19,000 total?
No. What?
1,900.
1,900. Proposal, yeah. So-
19 and change.
Yeah, I move that we approve the expenditure of $1,900.
Looks like 1930.90.
1930.90 for the
About
repair.
90 cents too high.
Repair of the satellite pedestals.
I'll second.
Second, yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Chris, and you can then approve that. Okay, Jason?
Okay, the next thing I have is the proposals for the landscape contracts for the newly acquired areas in Cypress Grove. So I went ahead and got two proposals, rather than just assuming we're gonna give it to Ameriscape. I wanted to be able to provide two so that we could see the difference and make sure that they were giving us an honest, amount, and make sure we were getting the best person to do the job out there. But in.
What is your recommendation?
Yeah, what's your?
My recommendation is Ameriscape.
Mhm.
I think it makes a lot more sense. Not only, their proposal is $14,000 less or $12,000 less. Not only that, their familiarity with the community, with the management, things like that.
Are the basics the same with what we have in
I
Old
use
Pelican?
exactly the same.
Frequency of
Yes.
service? Okay.
Yes.
Jason, the timing is obviously different. Is there something in here that allows us to wrap it all together at some point?
Wrap it all together.
And go out?
Into a single.
Yeah,
one
contract.
landscape
Into a-
That's what I did with everything that we got out here. I tried to tie in, everything that I could, as far as putting it with one of the other contracts. I'm sure I could work with Fabian and get something together.
Yeah, I
In the future
guess,
to kind of-
I guess.
I'm trying not to have too many different contracts too.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem to me it might be desirable to have a contract with, a separate one with Ameriscape to so that they both end at the same time.
Right.
And so for next year, or for when the new Ameriscape contract comes up, it's all wrapped into one. Is that, will be possible to do that? I think that would be a
I
desirable way to go.
don't see why we couldn't restructure one of them or something. They would be willing to do that.
Yeah, we probably only gotta give them 30 days anyway. So just a year from now, or whenever our master comes up, make it one. Old Pelican, new Pelican.
Like I said, I'll talk to Fabian, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to accommodate.
So do we need a motion for this?
Well, yeah, and so, Jason, so what would the, so I guess we only have to approve the new contract at this point?
Yeah.
And the new contract is for
56,
806?
Yeah, that sounds
Um,
good.
So
I'll make a motion that we
Okay.
accept the Ameriscape bid for the Pelican Preserve Cypress Grove Community.
Second.
at 56,806. Any further discussion on that?
And, Chris, how far have we extended the other contract?
I'll have to take a look, I don't know off the top of my head.
We'll just
It's been a long
start
time.
it from that date?
It's been a long time since we reviewed.
No, I mean the Juniper contract that the developer had in place.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to get a start date, so I'll get that, it'll be as soon as we can.
30 days, 60 days, whatever, something like that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0. I guess we need to bring that to the board, Chris. Okay.
The only other item I have is the bridges and boardwalks
Right.
proposals. I've only received from one company so far. I'm kind of still working on trying to have something to compare it to. But for budget for Nancy and that kind of thing. This one came back, they all vary a little bit, but each item is basically around $30,000 each.
Per bridge?
Per bridge, and then the boardwalk. The boardwalk's 31,810, and the bridges vary between 29,985, actually, yeah, 29,985, one of them's 32,922, and a 28,196,
So
so.
we're looking at about $120,000.
Mhm. And I did talk to Atlas Engineering as well, as far as the urgency, and his response was 2 to 4 years. As long as the individual planks would continue to maintain like that, but there is time to.
A question, because I've been getting this question from a number of residents, and I can't recall, does this include, there are an awful lot of loose boards?
It includes re-screwing everything on the boardwalk. Every single screw will
Every
be
single screw.
replaced. That's about $14,000
Okay.
of the cost.
All right. Okay.
That's planking and the top boards, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Really needs it.
Oh, yeah. it
You've
does.
been out there, look at it, it needs it.
It needs it badly, and.
A lot of that wood's
it makes,
splintering, man.
I got it this morning from Ralph Cox, who lives in Siena, and he said that when a golf cart rides on the far end, when it enters the far end of the boardwalk, he can hear it over in Siena, in this unit. It's that bad.
He needs to turn down his hearing aids.
Tell them I'm going as fast as I can.
And you're stomping your feet.
So, okay, so you think you'll be able to come back to us next month?
And I think another one is appropriate,
Okay,
rather
yes.
than just try and take
Well,
one
I probably
person's.
certainly will, yeah. Okay,
I did give Nancy those numbers for budget purposes.
Anyway, the expense.
That's all I have.
any other issues with Jason? Any with Ryan? Unless somebody, do you have anything to report, Ryan? or-
Brian with Securitas, thank you for having me here. I did want to give you an update. We have made a couple of staff changes to the site. We have a new site supervisor, Officer Brinkman. He's been with us now about 3 weeks on site. He's been a transfer from the Midwest as a supervisor out there, so he brings a lot of experience and knowledge with him to the site. We've been going through evaluating the staff. We've done several meetings with performance-related issues, as you know, that we've worked through those. We're also working on retraining the staff on procedures and post orders as well. We should have that completed in the next month or so. So I'll have a little bit more to feedback at the next meeting.
Good.
So,
Sounds good.
okay.
Any other questions? Ryan,
Yeah,
go ahead.
just
Fire
quickly,
away.
in your opinion, do the post orders need to be updated?
And it's been at least a year since we've gone through them, so I would think it maybe sometime over the summer we could, I can sit down with Jason and kind of go through them and make sure they're up to date and phone numbers are accurate and things.
Any other questions, Ryan or Jason? If not, we'll move on. Chris, do you wanna, everybody got your email. Do you wanna give us any more background on this district engineer?
Sure, we've put out a request for qualifications for a district engineer for the CDB. And the current incumbent, Tetra Tech, their contract ends May 17th. We have some orders going out with them, and we're extending that for about 60 days, just to allow them to finish up some work. And what the process is we put out a request for qualifications. We have a selection committee go through and review and rank those potential candidates. And then the top 3 make a presentation to the board. And at that point, by statute, then you rank them, and the number 1 you start contract negotiations with. And if you can come up with a satisfactory price, fine. If you can't, you move to number 2, then to number 3. So I was putting together a selection committee and a couple staff members, hopefully a representative from Pelican. That's what we'd like to see. And I'm going to ask a couple residents, so about 5 or 6 people. And the board, of course, can take that recommendation from the committee of the top 3. They may bring somebody in the committee didn't recommend. That's their prerogative, but it's really, you go through and just have a scoring sheet on each one and review each proposal and, past experience, performance, and about a half a dozen criteria, and bring it to the board. It's no small contract. The district engineer is usually around $175,000 or more per year in professional fees that go to that firm. And the only change we've made is the way they've had it set up in the past, and looking toward contracting is you've had that district engineer, and he's basically responsible for everything. If you want to hire a boutique engineer or specialist, he has to work under that engineer, so you're getting a markup on that. We're looking for a district engineer that has ability to do projects, but more strategic planning, big picture, how all the pieces fit together. And yes, he may do some of that work, but if we have something particular to wetlands, we may hire a wetlands engineer, a structural engineer, that type of thing. So that's the direction we're moving in, and I'd just like to see someone from Pelican or PPAC, or if you think,
How many people, how big is this selection?
5, 6, yeah, no more than that.
And then you.
And probably have 5 or 6 proposals to review.
So it'll be a Pelican person and then somebody Gateway or somebody?
Yeah, a couple from Gateway and a couple staff members. I'm not gonna sit on the committee.
I was gonna say, who's gonna be on it from staff?
Probably the utility manager and finance manager, Mike Kraft and Kenny Hall.
And one of them will run?
I might come in and facilitate it, but yes, and it's really, I hand you all these proposals, and you can score them, and then you get back together and review them, and, okay, is everybody?
So what kind of qualifications would you think necessary would be a volunteer for this? Do you think? An engineering background of some kind?
Well,
or-
that can help or hurt. It really doesn't matter. We've had attorneys work on it, we've had lay people work on it. And sometimes it's better to have a mix, because you get somebody who say is an
Hey,
engineer.
Bob, don't go too far too quick. Go into the back.
Yeah. An engineer might have an idea in his head what an engineer should be, where a resident may have a different expectation. I've had attorneys sit on these committees before, and they don't know anything about engineering. They just look at, oh, here's how you're scoring them, and they go through and look at their qualifications. And along with these qualifications, they have to submit a standard form, they call it a 330, which is who's the staff is gonna work on it, what are their qualifications and resumes.
Chris, are you happy with Tetra Tech since you've been here?
Yeah, that's probably not a question.
That he wants to answer.
Yeah.
Well, let me, is,
Engineers are like attorneys, they're right when they're right, they're right when they're wrong. And quite honestly, it's a little different because the engineer here works for the board, they don't work for me. And the board is looking at changing that relationship so that the district engineer works under the district manager, not through the board. And in the past, where they've had,
so that's a major change of something you're looking at.
and it's really, I'm not, when I put this out to bid, it's not picking on Tetra Tech or a problem with them. We put Mainscape out to bid, we're gonna put our, aquatics out
Sure.
to bid. So, and,
Yeah.
Mainscape's been here for years. You're talking $1 million a year landscape contract, and actually putting it out, their contract amount went down $36,000 this year because they were going into a competitive bid process. And we also, instead of saying, well, it's all gateway, including the soccer field and the pool, we had them break it out because we really couldn't determine what the costs were to maintain these different areas. So, and that's part of it too. And same thing with what is the expectation for engineering services for Pelican.
Now, from what I understand, you're looking for the Pelican rep to not have any contact, had any contact with Tetra Tech.
Is that right?
Well, I'd rather, have somebody that's fresh to the process, and I don't really care with someone on the outside, say another engineering firm may say, well, he's had lunch with them and he's worked with, who knows? So, would I say, Mr. Geppert with the ponds couldn't be on it because he interacts with Tetra Tech? I wouldn't say no.
Well, like I said, I've never had a cup of coffee with him. Never had lunch.
I was gonna say,
Never a nickel.
Yeah, we aren't gonna get that.
I'll be happy to say that.
And when
No, I
Chris
want to do that.
put that criteria, if we want to implement it with that criteria, it seemed to me that virtually all of us, particularly Bob.
I've absolutely had most interaction.
I mean, he's
He
the
had
guy
most
who's gonna
interaction.
interact with the
But-
new guy.
Well, but,
You know.
But.
in fairness, now, there's some things we haven't gone to, to Tetra Tech, we go to Mars Valley, we've done other people.
Yeah.
And I absolutely support what Chris is saying about, you need to refresh these, contracts. I mean, we've done everything we've had,
Yeah.
whether it's our pond maintenance or the
Take out for a
tools,
few beers, so.
or
Yes, I was
landscaping.
gonna say, I think
qualify
all of
myself.
us, and Nancy, you've been involved with the
Yeah.
bonds, I certainly have been involved with Tetra Tech. I think you guys have
I
as
have
well,
too.
with the maintenance,
Yeah.
so.
Track
this-
elk
this-
conveyance.
Huh?
And a track elk conveyance.
So I think the six of us, if we are to use
That
Chris's
criteria.
criteria, none of us could serve.
And I have a volunteer,
Do you?
yes, the fellow that you met and recommended to me to talk to go take a peek at some of the infrastructure, John Valan, I think it's Valan. Valen.
John Valen.
And he is very interested. I talked to him a couple times about it, and he said he'd be willing to be on the committee. I told him we would be discussing it today, and if we're interested, we could get more information from him. He's been in the construction business, and he went around with me looking at infrastructure, just giving his professional perspective on what I was looking at. He's more in that business than I was as a mechanical engineer. He was very helpful.
I'll
We
say-
may have others also, but John's very interested to help.
I'll add both ways. It's not so much I'm concerned about even a friendly relationship. Maybe it was an unfriendly, maybe
Yeah.
someone you've worked with them, and I don't like those guys, anybody but them. And, I don't want that either, because, they're the incumbent, and they're entitled to a fair shake and a presentation just like anyone else.
Chris, are you gonna be able to get 5 different firms at 5 bids?
I think so. There's a lot of people
There's
that
a
are.
lot of people around here that work with other CDDs.
Yeah, they've worked with, and there may be even an out-of-county firm, maybe we want them, or maybe they're not. There's a lot of different business arrangements. I've seen some that you have them on a retainer, for asking questions per month, and you get so many phone calls and get those consultations at a low rate, and then where they're really making their money is when you hire them to do a couple of these projects.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question here. I know of a person also within our community who might be a good fit. He hasn't specifically volunteered yet or not. How do you want to do this? I mean, you want us to give you a couple of names and you go with contact these folks,
Well,
or?
that'd be fine. You know, I
Because
think what.
if it's not us, because I was gonna nominate this guy, you know, because
To be honest with you,
he has more of the interface with.
I feel like
these
it's
folks
too
and
critical to have a
residents,
novice in it, I really do.
You know, but if
I would,
you, I mean,
I would
that's
do it,
your
I would
call,
certainly have Nancy do it.
I guess.
But it's
Gets
too
on
critical
there.
for us to not have somebody that
Yeah.
hasn't had
And
experience.
you may, I don't have a problem if y'all want two people. And like you said, you have some people that haven't been involved, that are interested in a professional background, and that's fine.
I'm sorry, yeah, John, you feel?
I think somebody from the advisory committee
Should
should
be
be involved.
involved. You
So do I, I
Okay.
feel pretty strong.
Yeah, I do too.
Do you?
We know the inner workings of the, and how they
And
work.
their interface with the community.
Okay.
Well, we have a better idea of what our needs are.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no question about that, I think.
Now, I will say this, in going forward, I see our needs diminishing greatly. Almost everything's been completed. I mean, we're reaching the end of the tunnel, but up to now, it's been critical, absolutely critical.
Yeah,
And obviously, we're gonna be doing some things with evaluation and stormwater management that'll impact the whole community and impact Pelican, so. In case we decide to change some structures, or we find some elevations that are not correct, or, you know, interfacing with the water management
and we
district.
have ongoing issues.
We have
with
so many ongoing things right
repairs
now.
and-
We still have more conveyance things.
Conveyances, and we got flooding, we haven't resolved the lot, so.
Yep, yep.
Well, if Chris is willing to take two people from Pelican, and we have one from the board, and we have somebody, maybe some new blood that hasn't been involved, that could look at it from a different angle, maybe that would be a good way to go.
Yeah.
Bob, if you wanna volunteer, that's fine with me. I agree, you and I probably have the most.
Most
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with either one. I'm certainly, I will volunteer, but if, you know, you would like to get a different approach, I'm okay with that.
I defer to you.
Well,
Well, we've got three names. You've got a person, I got a person who might be interested.
Yeah, we should
And-
talk to both of
and,
them.
Bob.
mhm.
So, I mean, I don't have any problem with Bob being the guy, because
Well,
obviously he's got the most
I think-
historical knowledge.
I'd say probably would involve 2 full days, I'm estimating 16 hours between reviewing
Yeah, I have no problem with that,
proposals.
they'll be light tape. After bonds, it's all light.
If you're willing to put up with this guy.
Okay, well,
I just have to keep the caramel jar full and I'm fine.
There you go.
I think the consensus of the committee is that at least one of our appointees would be Bob, Chris,
Sir, okay.
and
Hey, why don't we pass the names
Yeah, and let Chris
to
can
Chris, and
talk
let
to
Chris
them.
take a look at it?
the other two.
Yeah.
Go,
Sure.
we're
Sounds
ready to go
reasonable to
from
me.
there.
Yep.
Okay.
It's
He's
thanks
not
for.
an unguided missile, he's,
Who, John?
no, there's other guy, we'll just trust you
Oh.
on that.
Yes, yeah, I also have had
Phil
some.
recommended him to me, so.
I have had
Who
some.
did? Oh, okay, good.
I've had some contact with John, although Joe had a lot more interfacing than I did.
Then I'm okay with
But
it.
he seems like a
You know what I mean, we
good,
get some
steady
people,
kind of guy.
agendas that are trying.
Yes, right, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, so we agreed that Ron and Joe will provide Chris with those names. Bob will be one, and then
Pick one of the other two.
one of the other two. Okay?
Sure,
Sounds good.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a thankless task, so Mr. Geppert's used to that. And, move forward.
Cypress Grove conveyance, Cypress Grove conveyance issues, I don't know if we have any, I was interested, maybe you're gonna put this in your report, about the conservation areas, and,
That's all gonna be covered in mine.
you're gonna,
At this juncture,
yeah.
I don't know of anything that's coming forward on conveyance, unless Chris,
Yeah.
you haven't,
Do
are
we
they
have any
pushing
conveyances?
anything with conveyance?
Hampton Park,
Well, we're very
But
interested in that. but
anything at this upcoming meeting?
no.
Nothing?
Next thing that'll be coming up will be Matarita 4, and, you know.
What has
that isn't-
been-
That isn't even been submitted or, you know, put on the agenda.
What has been conveyed up to this point was Track L, Casella 1, Prado,
Correct, so Pistoia's will be coming up, and then Mat 4.
but we haven't done Matarita 2A, we haven't done Corrito 1 or 2. Because some of those still have outstanding issues that we're working with
I thought
Tetra
they were all
Tech.
done.
No, that's why I'm bringing it up there.
Yeah, no, we, not the drainage because of the canals, that issue.
Well, we have the
with
canal
easement.
issue, and that's in the Carina portion. But there were still some open pipe sections and things where we hadn't gotten documentation. It was either videoed and or repaired. And Stephen Agape is following this up with the checklist. And my question to you is if we have the as-bills. I have not received an as-bill since Track L, and I need everything else we got.
I'll get that to you, and also from the conveyances that have happened, I have all the bills of sale and asset information and valuations.
Good, I need all that, because
Yes. And-
we are paying someone to maintain Track L's ponds, and Paredo's ponds, and the one pond in Casella. We are not paying for anything else, WCI is still paying for the rest. And I wanna have a nice orderly way of tracking when it was conveyed, and the fact that we all agree. But there's, everything is not completed as far as Tetra Tech is concerned with the punch list we have given. And the biggie that we're talking about with Carina is there's 24 homes where they're gonna have to go, Lennar's gonna have to go in and build out into the flowway, because there's not enough room right now for easement. I have been talking to the HOA, and they're not inclined to give away the easement. It's not to say that's a dead issue, but they're not inclined to do that.
And that is the issue, that flowway, when we were out in the
Yeah,
field.
we've been out and looked at it, it's all staked off.
Yeah, anything from 18 inches to 4 feet was short. And on one side, they said, well, we can come in and fill it and bring it out, but boy, it's gonna be a lot of disruption to the homeowner. Maybe the stuff will slough off, and I looked at it and said, well, it held up good during the hurricane, but the Lennar counter proposal was there's a 10-foot easement up here you could use for access if we can get the homeowners association,
just
because
give it
it's
to 'em.
exclusive to the homeowner association and it's not dedicated to CDD. You know, would that work? And I know they've been working on that as a fallback.
And to be quite candid, we're getting next to no cooperation out of Lennar on any of it. They screwed us royally on the conservation areas. And by that I mean, the last time they paid to put a nickel in conservation was in August. And they transferred everything to us November 30th, knowing full well areas were not treated in November, December as they should have been. And that's a lot of money. May not be a lot to them, but it's a lot to me. So it's $40,000 plus. So they screwed us on that. They haven't been forthcoming with Prado as far as the downspouts in Pistoia. They keep telling us they're gonna do it, and I withdrew an objection for the board to accept Prado for our maintenance responsibility based on Caldwell telling me they were gonna do it, but if we objected, then they wouldn't install it. Okay, that was 6-8 weeks ago, they still haven't done the first one, and you talked to them this week, do we have a date yet? Haven't started.
That's the second time I sent a follow-up and, you know, represented.
I think we're that, are you doing that in writing now? I mean, not that it makes.
Oh,
any
yes, sir.
difference.
It's
Okay,
an
good.
email.
So you brought that up at the
Oh,
board?
yeah,
Yes.
I brought it up in the last district, I mean, so if they're looking for us to help them with a homeowner issue, sorry, buddy, what goes around comes around. It's just the way it is, they've taught us that cooperation only goes one way.
Yeah, I would ask also on the conveyance, I'd ask our resident expert here about the roadways in some of those areas. Do we still have any major things that you think that we ought to be looking at?
We have residents that still have complaints about broken gutters. Yeah, and there's that one big section on Vitale that has just a horrendous break in that gutter. And they've just walked away from all that. They did 10, 12 things and just disappeared from the community.
Now, is this, but are these things that have already been conveyed?
That I'm not sure of.
If they have been conveyed,
If
Chris.
they've been conveyed, we've got there are problem now.
Well,
Well,
if
not
they've been
exactly,
conveyed-
not totally, because there is
Well,
a
we get the-
warranty
Well, yeah,
for
Yeah.
3
we have a
years.
warranty.
So we could go after it as a warranty item,
Yeah.
and then if it's not satisfied to them, you could make a claim on the bond.
Well, we've
It's a little more
discussed that.
documentation, but that's what I suggest, is we get together with documentation and have Tetra Tech, as they're the PE, write that note, we make a warranty claim and ask them to fix it.
Okay, what can I do to get that going then?
Yeah, just take some pictures and addresses of the location, and we'll have the PEs bless it, and we'll send it over to them,
Okay.
see what happens.
Done.
I think that's
Good.
what they want us to do, let's do it.
Yeah, okay.
I will do it.
All right, good. Okay, anything else on Cypress Grove conveyance at this point? Okay, move forward to capital reserve study.
Yes.
Finally.
Finally, okay. In the audience, we have Jack Richards, who's the author of the report that you all got yesterday.
Yep.
and Philip Robner, who's been working with me and Chris and Jack on reviewing all of his work, and to make sure that we understand what's in there and it's complete. What I'd like for you guys to do is look at the extra charts that I've given you. I think it's a good news story here, okay? Basically, for what we all have been calling old Pelican, money we've been putting aside for, all right? We're basically fully funded as far as reserves are concerned. Okay?
That's amazing, the later we started all that process.
Fully funded up to now.
Up to right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. We're 99.84%
Yeah.
funded. Okay? When it comes to the newer areas that have just been conveyed and will be conveyed, okay? It's not a major increase in dollars, okay? I want to go through those numbers very quickly. And some of them are going to get modified a little bit, I think, as time goes on, because Nancy and I keep disagreeing on how much money is in the reserve account, or will be in the reserve account. And I take that from looking at the budget thing that you just got today. Okay. But basically, if you look at phase 3 includes basically everything off of Cypress Grove. Okay, so phase 1 and 2 is Old Pelican, and phase 3 are all the communities off of Cypress Grove. And that's the way this was designed when we gave the tasking to Jack to work on it. Okay. The conveyance of all those communities off of Cypress Grove is kind of crazy, because you didn't know when it was going to happen, which
Right.
portions were
Still,
conveyed,
yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So we divided up this way, with phase 4 being Pistoia, Prado, and Casella.
Sell it too?
Well, Casella,
Okay.
okay? Now, I know Casella 1, but parts of the other one haven't been conveyed, so, it gets kind of crazy. But I think in terms of the overall numbers,
Yeah.
I don't think it makes any significant difference. So if you look at this page, I think most of you are on there, right? Yep, that's the one, okay. If you note the second line there where we listed phase 3, in order to give Jack a methodology for how to figure out these numbers, the amount of money going into the reserves from this year's budget, which a month ago was $310,799. If I look at Nancy's budget, it says $363,000.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I got those numbers from Nancy a month ago, but this says it's actually $50,000 higher. That's okay, because that just makes the numbers better, okay? So basically, we would need to be adding from this date forward, okay, into next year's budget, we would have to,
18,
$350,000 per year.
Total.
Total.
350?
That can, $350,445, okay? That does not include Prado and Pistoia, because they haven't been conveyed.
Okay.
And I think we've had this discussion with the guys, legally, I don't know that we can put money aside for stuff we don't own yet.
Mhm.
So I don't,
So.
That gets to be an issue.
If we assume, okay, so when phase 4 is finally conveyed.
Right.
We would then have to relook at this and do these
as of
additional.
right now, that would be an extra